This has become a pretty hot topic, the problem with anime original content, that is, because of the Promised Neverland, and well, its complete deviation from the manga, only 2 or 3 episodes into the second season. And it's bothered the majority of fans of the series, which is completely warranted. Anytime a show strays away from the source material, it's going to bother people, regardless of whether the adaptation is great or not. And I'm not saying that all anime original content is terrible either, but the biggest difference I feel like is if you make one mistake with anime original content, the studio has no one to blame but themselves. And I think that is inherently the issue at hand, that creating independent content, like completely changing the plot of the show, is like walking on a tightrope. Slip up once and you have the wrath of the anime and manga community on you, whether that's a good or bad thing. And today, that's what I'm going to try and explain. I just think that it's a really interesting issue, and that it has a pretty long history in anime as well. So let's get into it. Well before Promised Neverland, one of the first big shows to do this was the original Fullmetal Alchemist adaptation. The manga wasn't finished when the anime aired, so they went and made their own ending. But something I think is really interesting about Fullmetal Alchemist's anime original ending, or large part of the series actually, is that it wasn't bad. And sure, manga fanatics can come at me for saying it, but after watching it, I mean, yeah, Brotherhood is leagues ahead of it, but it was still very enjoyable to me. Which is important to mention, that not all anime original content should be immediately taken as terrible, as ruining the series. As a pretty avid manga reader, I would never want a series to become anime original, but to immediately assume it's bad is really rash. But you could also argue that it's just our due diligence, our way of respecting the work the mangaka has put into making a series that their fans enjoy, that they're proud of, which is also very, very valid. Let's move on to the Promised Neverland, because it's the most recent example that really needs to be understood. Now, if you aren't aware, if you're like living under a rock or something, the Promised Neverland has officially went anime original. And I've only read a bit of the manga past the anime, so I don't know how everything goes in the series. But I've read enough and done enough research, I think, to understand why people are so frustrated. One, well, I mean it's anime original. Something that off the bat will piss people off. And two, and most importantly, it's cut out one of the best arcs and some of the best content in the whole series as a result. The ending of the manga didn't seem to get a super good reception by its fanbase. Again, some people enjoyed it, but as a generalization. And so it seems like the studio wanted to avoid that and is overcorrecting as a result. But that ended up taking out great material from the series, which is severely upsetting. Like, the ending was bad, so they just decided, oh, I know, let's just completely get rid of everything up until the ending to fix that. Like, what? And it's different from the case with Fullmetal Alchemist because the manga was even finished by that point. But with Promised Neverland, it is. Everyone knows how the series finishes. And that's a big reason why they're upset. And to bring up what I was talking about in the beginning of the video, the Promised Neverland is now at that point where anything remotely upsetting in the show becomes very upsetting as a result. Every step taken away from the original series in an arc that was considered to be really good makes it all worse and worse, which is kind of tragic. I mean, look, I'm not taking the studio's side here, because they've certainly made some pretty rash decisions in the second season adaptation, but if you let me play the devil's advocate for a moment, would season 2 still be bad if there were no manga to compare it to? The problem with anime original content is exactly that we can no longer judge the second season objectively because we're already biased, already predisposed to want it to follow the manga, the original path it was meant to take. Not to say that the anime original content is some kind of masterpiece and that we're being stupid by comparing it to the manga, but to return to the Fullmetal Alchemist case, I mean, the original series has a MyAnimeList rating of 8.16. It's pretty good. It's not a 9.19 like Brotherhood, but it's still really good anime original content. The series, standalone, in a vacuum, is pretty damn good. And we have incredible shows like Code Geass, which are completely anime original, so it's not like the shows can't be trusted in the hands of studios in the first place. But it's thought-provoking to think of whether a show that has stopped following the manga is still good without having any biases in place beforehand. I mean, until Brotherhood came out, the original Fullmetal Alchemist was pretty widely accepted, even if it wasn't an accurate adaptation. So why have things changed? Or have they even changed? Is Fullmetal Alchemist just an anomaly, an exception to the anime original genre? Are all the others bad? Well, it's important to note that Fullmetal Alchemist came out in 2003. Anime was way smaller with Western audiences at the time. I mean, the only one of the shows among my favorite anime personally that were around by that point were Legend of the Galactic Heroes and One Piece. So it definitely goes to show that I think people were just glad to get anything at that point. But all of the most popular examples of series turning into anime original content in anime history that I'm aware of, like Soul Eater, Tokyo Ghoul second season, are all thought of in a bad light, which certainly says something, whether it's that the series themselves really did turn bad, or if the new content just didn't meet the expectations of fans. And again, I want to say that I'm not coming to the defense necessarily of making anime original content of a show that has proper source material to adapt from. And I think the Promised Neverland case specifically is one of the worst. It's cutting out all of the content following the first season, arguably one of the biggest shifts and changing points in the series to pursue a more enjoyable ending. Which is ironic, because I don't think anyone will be satisfied with the ending considering how much has changed, but I don't know. I don't really think there's one concrete solution to this issue, if there was one in the first place, but it should certainly be talked about. I think people are quick to crap on anime original content without even bothering to objectively look at the new material itself, but, maybe that's not a bad thing. Again, maybe it's what we should do to respect the mangaka and the work he's put into it, which I honestly believe to be mostly the case. But granted, it is ultimately the studio's decision. They're the ones that even let the mangaka series get animated in the first place. It's their choice. Studios don't often work closely with mangakas on active adaptations because, well, they do what they think is best for their organization, what'll get them money, what'll make them profit. Which isn't really that admirable. Working with the mangaka themselves seems like the best way, but who am I to say? I'm just a small YouTuber criticizing huge companies worth millions. I enjoyed the first season of Promised Neverland, but I haven't even watched past the second episode of the second season because, well, 1, I'm too lazy, and 2, because I really haven't heard anything good about it. So maybe I'm part of the problem, the continued stigmatization of anime original works. Or maybe I'm unknowingly doing justice by the original creator. Who knows? As always, this has been the Anime Culture Corner. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future in-depth show, manga, and character analyses.